Mike, we've recently seen on Four Wheels Good the What Car Awards, and there are many, many car awards, and you're involved in some, aren't you?
Too many, I think, actually. Too many cars of the year. And if you ask me ever what my car of the year is, I'd be very reluctant to actually nominate one car as the car of the year, because...
That's because he wants to be everybody's best friend.
That's right, keep in with everybody, keep them all sweet. No, to me it's a bit like saying what's your best film and what's your favourite movie?
What's your favourite record ever?
Oh, well, there you go. You can't answer a question like that. The Birdie song. Or, you know, who's the best looking woman in the world or the best looking bloke? It's just not like that. So you have to name a few, I think. You nominate half dozen. However, Auto Express magazine, with all its sister publications around Europe, has actually taken a slightly different approach. And instead of asking all the journalists what is their car of the year, and let's face it, journalists don't generally buy cars, so they're the worst person to actually say what's a good or bad car.
They just like the expensive fast ones, don't they, Mike?
But they don't put their hand in their pocket. That's the point. And yet the punters do. So Auto Express, along with Auto Build and Auto Orgy, and all the magazines in the Auto Express family around Europe, have actually decided to ask lots of people what is their car of the year. So they've asked the punters, first of all, the readers, probably the most important vote of the lot. They've also asked engineers, and they've also asked Formula One drivers, everybody from Heinz-Harald Frentzen to Mika Salo and one or two other F1 pilots that are currently on the scene. I mean, these guys...
they know their cars, don't they?
They do know their cars. I mean, whether they're looking for the same sort of thing in a car that you and I are is another matter altogether.
But who's to say that you and I are even looking for the same kind of thing in a car?
Exactly. And, you know, it staggers me. And I suppose that's the interesting thing about this business, that different people want different things from cars. So that the upshot of all that is that all these people, the journalists, the punters, the F1 drivers, the engineers, all got together recently in Germany, put a load of cars through their paces, the best cars from around Europe. In the UK, for example, Auto Express nominated the Jaguar XK8 as the car of the year.
Why was that?
Well, I think it's an obvious one, really, isn't it? And I think if you had to push me and say what was one of the cars of the year in the last 6 months or so, 12 months, I'd have to nominate the XK8, maybe the BMW 5 Series, Volkswagen Passat, certainly the BMW Z3. Yeah. I mean, that'd have to be
Without
up there
a doubt,
as well.
it's got to be up
but
there.
You know what I mean? It's very difficult to say this car is better than that car. This one wins the award. So in the UK, we nominated the Jaguar XK8. Obviously, the Germans nominated a German car.
Which was?
Well, eventually, it was the winner, actually. The Passat came out as the winner. After all the magazines nominated their own cars, not necessarily a car from their own country, but half a dozen or so cars went to the finals, and ultimately all the judges, all the engineers, all the punters, all the Formula One drivers then cast their vote, and like I said, the Passat was the winner. And it was the Geneva Motor Show, of course, which we reported on a month or two ago, was the venue for the announcement of the car of the year, the Auto One car of the year. And it was it was one of the biggest do's at the Geneva show. They brought along Bonnie Tyler for the prize giving ceremony, the cabaret and whatnot, for all the motor industry to attend, and it was probably the motor industry event of the Geneva Motor Show.
In a year of a lot of big launches, things that people had really been waiting for, you know, we saw the XK8, which has been, you know, people have wondered and, you know, what it was going to be like. The BMW Z3, people have waited for that for so long. What do you think made the Passat clinch it? What's it got that made it so special?
Well, I think you would expect, wouldn't you, the XK8 to be a great car. You would expect a BMW to be a great car. With all due respect to Volkswagen, they're great at producing small cars like the Polo and the Golf.
Good at the hatchbacks.
Yeah, but you don't expect Volkswagen to weigh in with a car that really gives the likes of Mercedes and BMW a wake-up call. I mean, that car for me was one of the big surprises of the year. You know, it's always the best way, isn't it? It's like a blockbuster movie, you know. It's not the movie that you've been waiting for 6 months. And, you know, I mean, how often did you hear about Evita being made and that silly cow, whatever her name is, the actress in it?
Madonna.
I can't bear to hear her name or say it. I mean, there's all that hype about the movie, and the movie comes out and it's crap. But you wait for there's a quiet movie
Mike, don't mince
trickling
your
away
words.
in the background.
Just say it like it is now.
Well, you know, that's it. You know, The English Patient, for example, nobody was talking about who even knew it was being made. And it comes out and it wins all the Oscars. And it's the same with the Passat, I think. Nobody was expecting a great car. I actually owned the previous Passat, which was a dog. And, and I've got to say that, you know, these two cars, the current shape Passat and the previous generation, not 2 generations ago, the previous generation model, chalk and cheese.
It's a transformation, isn't it? Really?
Great car. And
it's kind of, you know, the beast turning into the beauty.
Yeah, and it must really worry the likes of, in particular, Mercedes, I think. Because if Mercedes could bring out a car as good as that, I think they'd all be patting each other on the back saying, hey, we've done a great job. But in fact, Mercedes have designers and stylists these days who, you know, obviously there's something wrong with their crayons. I can only assume they're taking on YTS trainees to design their cars, because they really are screwing things up in the design department. And you've got a company like Volkswagen that are coming along, who are not particularly noted for great designs. Beautiful looking car in the Passat. The quality is great. Even the TV ads that accompany the car are great. Not that that was being judged when Auto Express and all the other magazines.
But it's the whole package, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the perfect car.
Okay, well, you've been looking at a lot of cars over the last few months, and you've been a very hard man to pin down.
Yeah.
We must say, you've been everywhere, man.
Yeah.
You've been to LA recently, and you've been driving, not the James Bond car, but the Saint car, haven't you? The Volvo.
In fact, I've been to LA 5 times in 5 months.
He has such a hard life, doesn't he? Your heart bleeds for him.
Every month I go to LA on average, and it's getting madder and it's getting crazier. And it's a fascinating place. Every time I go there, I think, yeah, great place for a holiday, but do be careful if you're in LA, seriously. And I'm not going to go into details, but if you're driving, I'm not talking now about being out on the open roads, but if you're driving in the city around LA, stay out of the inside lanes. If you're coming up to traffic lights or junctions, stay out of the inside lane. I'm not going to go into details because I don't want to give people ideas, but let me just tell you that's where the criminals pounce. If you stay in the middle lanes and the outside lanes, because of course they have three-lane roads even in the city centres, something we should have here of course, that's where the criminals pounce. So if you want to be a little bit safer, stick to those middle and outside lanes. But to come back to the point, what was I doing? Driving the new Volvo, let's get this right, C70. I get very confused with Volvo names these days. They're messing around with their names. This is the car that's in the Saint movie.
So why were you driving it?
Well, it's a very good question.
The most unsaintly person I know.
Yeah. And in fact, I've got to tell you that, of course, Volvo took us out there, and it was on a Sunday morning. It was going to be this great big premiere of the Saint movie, and we all got up early with stinking hangovers, having driven the car earlier in the day and not having to drive on the Sunday. And we all turned up at this theatre to watch the Saint movie, the premiere of the Saint movie. And the projectionist forgot to turn up, so that was kind of embarrassing. So I still haven't seen the Saint movie. If anybody would like to send me a letter or something, tell me what it's like, I'd be pleased to know. I might wait for the video to come out.
But the movie, presumably, will be fantastic. Does the car live up to that, do you think?
Yeah, and it really does look the part. It's one of those, it's almost like an optical illusion, the C70. It looks like a small to medium, well, no, a medium-sized coupe. But in fact, it's the same size as the Volvo Estate that
that you drive.
That I drive, and I'm proud to, because it's my sort of car at my sort of age. But forget about that for a minute. That's a very big car. The traditional Volvo Estate, now called the V70, of course, huge car, and yet the coupe, which shares the same floor pan, is actually somehow looks much smaller. I heard the one about the Englishman, the Scotsman, the Mexican, the Korean, the Swede, the Iranian. Well, I'll explain. This car, the Volvo C70 Coupe, is a car that probably is about the most international car on the market. Let's start right at the top. Tom Walkinshaw, the man who runs TWR Arrows, Damon Hill's Formula One team, is the man that will be building this car in Sweden. It's a factory-owned 51% by TWR, Tom Walkinshaw, and 49% by Volvo. The chief designer for this car, the design director for Volvo in Gothenburg, is an Englishman, Peter Horbury. The interior designer is a Mexican, our old friend Jose, with the unpronounceable surname, who's been on the program before. We've got a Korean responsible for the incredible sound system in this car. We've got Iranians involved, West Indians, Indians, Irishmen, you name them, they're involved with this car. And it's almost like the united colours of Volvo. But apart from the fact that it is such an international car, it also happens to be a very, very impressive car to drive. You might think, from looking at it, it's almost like an optical illusion. You might think that this is a smallish 2+2. In fact, it's very much a 4-seater car. And I was very, very surprised to learn that this car is as long as the Volvo wagon that you see on the road, the V70 estate car as it's now badged. Think of those huge Volvo estates. This is the same length. It's built on the same floor pan. The designer, Peter Horbury, has explained to me that what he tried to do was, with this large platform, he tried to produce a car that looks smaller than it actually is, and I think he succeeded in that. Lots of rear legroom in the car. It's not a 2+2, it's a genuine 4-seater. And the other thing to remember is this is no competitor to the Peugeot 406, for example. I mean, that's a pretty car that's coming on the market at around about £19,000–19,000. You can pay twice as much as that very easily for this car, but this is very much in a different league. This is more in the same league as the Mercedes CLK, and therefore it does warrant that large price tag. Later on, we've got a convertible version coming as well, and there'll be all sorts of engine options and interior specifications. What it proves, I think, more than anything else, is that Volvo are shedding this dull, boring image. In the old days, Volvos were old men's cars, to put it bluntly. These days, they're moving up market, they're getting funky. This is a nice sporting car. Their British touring car success has helped them along the way, of course. And what's more, Volvo have this ability to sort of laugh at themselves a bit. You know, they don't take themselves terribly seriously, unlike the Germans. And I think that fun theme that runs throughout the company is reflected in this product you see here. The sound system in this car is just unbelievable.
How many? It's got something like 20-odd speakers, hasn't it?
And probably more.
Incredible.
I mean, you know, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
You know, I cranked the thing up, as these younger people say, and I was driving through the mountains in Los Angeles, and gave it a little bit of volume, and I tell you, I nearly caused another earthquake. The sound system is amazing. That's designed by a Korean woman. There are Irish people working at Volvo. It's almost as if they've looked around the world and said, look, we're a small country, we're a small manufacturer, we can't do everything ourselves, let's go and pick the best from around the world.
Yeah.
So they've gone to Britain, they've gone to Mexico, they've gone to Korea, they've gone to other places to get the best that there is on the world market. And that's why I always think that's a good, positive approach. And that means that you take off the blinkers, you take views from all over the world, and the result is a company that surely has had the most amazing turnaround of any company I can think of in recent years. You talk about the car of the year, for me that's a difficult one. The company of the year has to be Volvo, for just turning around that tired, staid old image into an exciting company.